90.3 WHPC now presents Law You Should Know. The law affects every aspect of our lives, our home, our jobs, and our recreational activities. Now, learn about the law and how to protect yourself against the loss of your liberty or property, and learn how to stand up for your rights and seek compensation when you have been wronged. Your host for Law You Should Know is attorney Kenneth J. Landau, a past dean of the Nassau Academy of Law, and frequently lectures to lawyers on ethics and avoiding problems with clients, and to the public on how to choose and use lawyers. This is Law You Should Know on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hi, this is Ken Landau, and welcome to Law You Should Know. Today is a special program on going from lawyer to author. We're going to talk with Peggy McColl, and she teaches and mentors authors and helps them go from conceiving the idea of a book to publishing it to getting it out there and marketing the book and also themselves. She's also the author of Your Book, Your Business, Your Breakthrough. And Peggy, I would like to welcome you to Law You Should Know.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate you having me.
It's the goal of so many lawyers, business people, and others out there, and maybe they're retired or reflecting on all they've learned in their career or about their field, to write a book in whatever form. And I appreciate your wisdom and your ideas on how a lawyer or a business person or just someone who has a lot to share can carry out their dream or help to accomplish this goal. So what is the first thing that someone should think about who wants to go from lawyer or from expert or from professional to author?
Yeah, to make a decision that they're going to do it and understand that it does not have to take years. Even if you're a busy professional, you're running a large law practice or a small law practice, but you're busy, that it can be done in a relatively short period of time. It does not have to take years.
And I know that you guide people and help people with every step along the way. So what are some of the initial considerations in formulating what you would cover, trying to outline the book or write that first chapter or even that first page or cover that first initial topic?
Yeah, I think it comes down to really thinking of what's the theme of the book, like what's the main message of the book. So if you're going to write a book on a particular topic, on how to write an ironclad will that, would never be disputed, and if that's the idea behind it, then you can start there and then begin to create an outline from there.
And it could even be coming up with a clever topic like the bulletproof will.
Exactly. That's a great idea. You're already several steps ahead because the title of a book is really important, because you've heard the term, people judge books by their cover, and they do.
And also in terms of interest, people judge articles in a newspaper by the headline and maybe that first lead-off sentence. So if you don't attract their attention and pique their interest, even if it's the greatest book or the greatest idea or valuable information, it's going to be a turnoff. So in terms of the level, in terms of engaging the listener, should they be writing something light and get to the point and make it easy to understand?
Yeah, they have to think about their reader. And there's a lot of common sense that goes into writing a book. And if you've ever read a book, what did you like about the book? And just like you said, get straight to the point. Don't want a lot of fluff. They want the meat. They want the materials. But people are also inspired by stories. Are there stories that you can include, examples that you can share that might help illustrate a point?
And should the story be relatable? It's not just your story. It could be a very common story. Like you have 3 children and you don't want to leave anything to one of those children because they don't need it, or maybe you're mad at them. It should be something, talking points, concepts that people can relate to.
Absolutely. Sounds like you really got this area covered, Ken. I'm impressed with your knowledge and understanding.
Well, I'm just trying to keep it interesting as the radio show host and as a potential reader, because I like books that just get to the point and give me a lot of information and a lot of interesting ideas.
Well, what you just said about being relatable is really important. So when I started writing as an example, I was a single mom running a business as an entrepreneur. But I'm not writing for only single moms who are entrepreneurs and running a business. I'm writing for a wider audience or a different audience. So yes, absolutely have to write in a way that's going to be relatable to a broader audience or for your audience, whoever they may be.
Now, in terms of getting going, should they worry about all these things, or they should just put their thoughts on paper and worry about the editing and making it more interesting and lively as a second or third or fourth step?
Yeah, there's so many different types of personalities that go into writing books as well. So there's certain people that are just like discovery writers, and they just are free-spirited. They put their fingers on the keyboard and away they go. Whereas there are other people a little more articulate, perhaps they're perfectionists, and they like to have an outline, and they verify that outline, and they're verifying everything. So it works either way. I mean, whatever your personality is, you can do it any way that you want. But at the end of the day, every writer needs an editor. And
is there a danger if they act as their own editor?
Definitely, there's a danger because, they miss things. Their grammar might not be perfect. They may have some spelling errors in there. There may not be a logical flow. Editors are trained to see those kinds of things and trained to fix them too. So I think there's always a danger.
And it also, the editor may help it to be more relatable or readable, than the lawyer who likes to use a lot of highfalutin words or Latin or esoteric expressions that people may not understand or may misinterpret.
Oh, absolutely. It has to be dumbed down. You've heard that term before, dumb it down. You really have to do that because then you're going to appeal to a broader audience. Now, if you're writing a book for a particular segment and they're used to these words, big words or whatever, then write it that way. But that's not, it's not usually who you're writing for.
If you're writing it for a more sophisticated group, is that you want your analysis to be at a higher level, your expertise to shine, as opposed to using a lot of fancy words, unless they're important to discuss, to the different contract terms or terms in the will, to provide explanations for them.
Yeah, if it makes sense. I think, when you're writing a book, one thing that you want to keep in mind is, how is this book different from anything else that's out there in the world? Because there's very likely another book like that out there in the world. You mentioned Bulletproof Wills as an example. There's probably books out there already. Not that you have to research them all and see them all, but what's going to make your book unique and thorough that the reader's going to love it and want to tell their friends?
But also the lawyer or other professional author may, after years of experience in handling matters and counseling clients, there may be a bunch of things, a bunch of concepts, information, alternative scenarios that they wish their clients knew and maybe knew at a higher level before they drafted the will, formulated the business, got divorced.
Right.
And so they're writing for that past, present, and future client. Is that also a possibility?
Yeah, absolutely. And the more they understand their clientele, the more they understand their reader, very likely the better the writing is going to go.
And that's going to showcase the lawyer as an expert, as a caring person, as someone they feel comfortable with. And they're giving them a lot of information. They're not giving away the store, but they're coming to them with a certain frame of reference.
Exactly. And that can lead to business too. Like if a lawyer wrote a book on a particular topic and they were very relatable and they demonstrated how much they cared and used a number of different examples and really gave great value, then they very likely have people flocking to them, like wanting to work with them.
Because as you know, it's always good if clients at every level understand their options and understand how the lawyer is handling their matter, and they're deciding how it should be handled.
That's it, exactly.
And how else does a writing a book help a lawyer or other professional or someone who has a body of knowledge or a body of work? How does it help them feel at the end of the process?
Exactly. I'm so glad you asked that question, because that is one of the biggest benefits. And many authors don't realize this benefit until they're done. They feel a great sense of accomplishment. It's something that they've done. It's something that they've created. It just feels good, and it very likely will inspire others as well.
And they're sharing their knowledge, their inspiration, their life work with the world.
Exactly. You know, I think about one day my son came home from school. He was going to a private school and he brought home some friends, and he went to a French school. So they're all speaking French, and they're standing in our family room and they're looking at the bookshelf with all my books in all these languages, because I have 37 language translations. And one of the kids turned to my son and said in French, like, "Did your mother write all these books?" Because he could see my name on there. And my son was so proud. He's like, "Yes, that was my mama." And it felt good to see that pride in my son.
Aside from the enjoyment, the satisfaction, can a book also lead to a source of income or multiple sources of income?
Definitely can lead to a source of income and multiple sources of income. And now more than ever, it's so easy to get a book available for sale online. And you can use something like Kindle Direct Publishing, which is part of Amazon, and they'll do direct deposit right into your bank account.
And you don't even have to spend the money. There's also print on demand or just selling it electronically. There's so many options and paying for 5,000 hardbound copies.
Exactly. That's the way it was when I first started. You had to buy your own copies. And I remember I was almost going broke trying to write a book on success.
And then you could also end up with all those remainders too.
Oh, there's that too.
Are there any other prerequisites to becoming an author other than desire?
I would say it depends. It depends on what you're planning to write about. And, you should have some knowledge, experience, wisdom, or at least feel like you have something of value to share.
You mentioned it a little earlier, and it's an important message of what, in thinking about the book and conceiving the book, the impact it's going to have on others. Maybe your friends and family, maybe clients or potential clients, maybe just people you want to, share your story with of hope or survival.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I released one of my books, I got a letter from a gentleman from New Orleans, and he was a very successful businessman. And he told me that my book, as a result of him reading my book, had saved his life. And he told me why. He gave me an explanation, and I was, quite amazed that it had that impact, but pleased at the same time.
But also, it may give people hope. They may be emerging from COVID, have other challenges, and they think they're alone. Maybe they can relate to your journey, your story. It can help them overcome that challenge. It can inspire them to go on to great things and to get through their current challenges.
That's true. I mean, that's where people find the inspiration is in books and in other people's examples when we see them in the media or we hear about them.
I do want to mention that we're talking with Peggy McColl, and she is the author of your book, Your Business, Your Breakthrough, and she is a guide to all things related to writing your book, whether it's conceiving the ideas, the outline, the content, helping with editing, and we'll see in a few minutes, getting the book published, distributed, and getting some publicity for yourself and for your book. And you're listening to Law You Should Know on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, Long Island, New York. Peggy, what are some of the books that you've helped people publish over the years?
Oh my goodness, I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of authors. But one that comes to mind is a lawyer, and she's based out of San Francisco. And one of the things that she loved to do in her spare time was write poetry. And she used to share her poems online. And at one point, somebody said to her, you should publish them in a book. And she had never even thought of that before. And she contacted me. Someone had referred her, and she ended up publishing her book called Beautiful Reminders. And it became a source of income for her as well. And it got her invited to different speaking engagements.
And we'll talk about speaking engagements, how the book can help propel you in that direction a little bit later in the program. What are some ways that a book can become a source of income for lawyers or others? Well,
there's a number of different things that you can do. One is that you can, of course, sell the book, and you can create the book in multiple formats. So you mentioned that book, Your Business, Your Breakthrough is one of the books that I have. It's an ebook, and I have it available as a Kindle book. I have it available as a lead generator as well. We give it away. And that can lead people to find out about my program and join my program. So you can use a book to give away. I remember hearing a story about a consultant one time who gave away a couple hundred copies of her book. And she did a very unique type of consulting. And she ended up generating $2 million in revenue from giving away her book.
And how did she make that money?
Because they read the book, discovered who she was, what her value was, and what her knowledge was, and they hired her. She may have written about some case studies that she was involved with or clients that she had worked with and had turned around their business. And so people hired her.
And aside from that, as you mentioned earlier, you might just be doing a very humane thing by helping others overcome or meet a similar challenge, by providing hope, by showing your expertise and helping people to move onto a new challenge or overcome some kind of past challenge that's holding them back. And you can't even measure that in dollars.
That's so true. Like I think about the number of, I did a little research before we got on our interview together, and you've probably heard of Mother Goose, right? The whole fairy tale theme. Do you realize that was a lawyer that started that? And there's other lawyers that have written crime novels. And so not related to their profession or the area that they specialize in. It was something else that they decided to do. And that can become a great source of income. The book industry last year in 2022 was $122 billion. And anybody can get into it. The prerequisite is desire. $122 billion. I think about another author that I heard of in 2014, wrote a book, released it, and it was her first book. In the first year, she generated $95 million. And I think it was the most money ever earned in that short a period of time, within 1 year. And think about J.K. Rowling. I know she's not a lawyer. She was actually on welfare, and she wrote a book, Harry Potter, and she became the world's first billionaire author.
And even, so someone has that desire, has that dream, they can, put their product out there, online. It doesn't cost them as much to do that. They can, donate it to libraries, donate it to possible, target other people or groups who might be interested in their work, and just put it out there and see what happens.
Right. I actually spoke with one of my clients today. He runs one of the most successful investment firms in the United States. He's out of Kansas City. And he wrote a book called The Ravine. It is a novel, and it is inspired by something that happened in his life. And he got a call one day from a warden of a prison, and he wanted 200 copies for his inmates. And then he got invited to come and speak at the prison. He said it was a very unusual event, but nonetheless, it led to sales, it led to the speaking engagement, and his book is now into a movie.
Wow. And even on a smaller scale, if you put the book out there, there may be people, maybe certain groups who are interested in hearing about that book, whether it's nonfiction or fiction, and interested in hearing the story behind their book. And it's a way to open doors and make new connections.
It really is. That's one of the fun things about it, is you just don't know where it's going to go, what's going to happen, who's going to read it. You put that book out there for sale and anybody can find it. Like Amazon.com is now the number one place where people go to buy books. And all you have to do is put your book up there, and you never know who's going to see it and buy it.
And some people also are inspired by life-changing events or current events and want to write a children's book that they feel for a topic that's not adequately covered, or want to share with a particular audience their experience or how they overcame various challenges. And there are markets for those books as well.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very hot market. My daughter-in-law just finished writing a children's book. It's going to be coming out in June, and it's called What a Mess, Kid. And it's based on my grandson, who has a messy room, and it's a really fun story. It's got great creativity, and it's going to be a source of income for her.
And does it work for adults who have those challenges as well?
Perhaps.
And is that a good thing or bad thing? Because I hear different stories out there. It's a sign of creative mind, and being neat is overrated.
Yeah, exactly. I think it can be a good thing. Or you can have fun with it and do like she did and just write an adventure kind of story.
And let's talk about the relatively new phenomenon of audiobooks. Is that something that works for many of your authors? Do they record the books themselves? There are ways they can find someone who has the perfect voice for them?
Well, you could probably do it yourself. Again, I think a lot of people just get in their own way with thinking it's a lot more complicated than it is. In my 21st book, I recorded right here on my computer. I plugged a microphone in the side of my computer. I opened QuickTime Player, new audio, push play. That was it. If I was recording and made a boo-boo, I'd stop, erase, start again. It's not that complicated. And today I received an email in my inbox from audible.com, depositing money into my bank account for my audiobook that I recorded that cost me nothing to record.
Except a little bit of time.
Took some time, but didn't take that much time. Maybe 3 hours.
And do some people try to do both, or is there some books that are only there as Audible books?
Yeah, you have to decide. People are not buying audio books as much as they're buying print. The most popular format is print, and that's trade paperback. So trade paperback is the most popular, and then hardcover, and then electronic, like ebook or a Kindle book, and then audiobooks.
And let's just define trade paperback for our audience. What does it mean technically?
It's soft cover book.
But it can be fiction or not. It just means soft cover.
Yeah, nonfiction. Yeah, exactly. And when we were talking earlier about sources of income, they're all sources of income. So today I happen to look at my bank account and I see there's deposits, all kinds of deposits. There's a huge list of deposits. Where are they from? Hardcover, trade paperback, the Kindle version. Then they're from all the other countries, because that's another thing. No matter where you live, you can upload your book and have it available all over the world.
And as you mentioned, there are many ways to go. And I just like to remind our listeners that we're talking with Peggy McColl, and she is the author of your book, Your Business, Your Breakthrough. She's been guiding authors through the writing and publishing and marketing process, and also sharing her ideas on how you can do some or all these things yourself. If you've missed any portion of our discussion, or you want to tell someone else about it, just go to the podcast of this show at nccradio.org. How else can writing the book and working on your outline and writing, chapter after chapter, verse after verse, be a more enjoyable process?
I would say that, a big part of approaching writing a book is attitude, as with anything. And so I think it's a choice whether it's going to be an enjoyable experience or not. I remember one time I had written about 7 books, and I was chatting with a friend of mine in San Diego, and she said to me, "If you ever hear me talking about writing another book, slap me." And I said, "Yeah, me too." And we were just talking about the amount of work, that was going into it. And then I realized we just need to adjust our attitude. That's it. And approach the writing as if this is going to be fun, and have fun with it. You're going to do it anyway, so just choose to have fun. And it made it a far more enjoyable experience.
And let's fast forward to the promotion part, where you've written your book and you're going to go on a book tour. You're going to make the round to different groups or organizations to discuss the book. And people want to look behind the curtain. What inspired you, and how did you decide to go with plan A and C? And how can you prepare for those talks and that promotional tour?
Yeah, I think you have to decide, what you're willing to do. When I became an author, I decided I wanted to do the work that I was doing from the comfort of my home. I use the internet. And today we have over 5 billion people online. And so you don't have to go on a tour. You see, I didn't want to be vacant from my son's life. My priority is being a mom, and my family is everything to me. And I wanted to do what I was doing from the comfort of my home. So you can do as much or as little as you want. You get to choose, but you don't have to get on the road. And I think that a lot of people would find that kind of exhausting, to be honest, and expensive by the time you're paying for flights and hotels and the travel and the time away. So my recommendation is promote your book from your home.
And you can also do it locally. You can tie it in with vacation or a trip or visiting relatives. But when I say promotion, maybe it also helps conjure up some interest in your work. It lets people know it's out there. It helps you to tell your story about how you came to write this book. Perhaps, get some interest going in the press and bookstores and others to carry your book.
Right, that's true. But where most people are going to buy books nowadays? Not in bookstores, or less and less are going into bookstores. Bookstores are closing, and which is kind of sad for those that love bookstores. They're going online.
I agree. But at least you're getting the word out. You're getting that exposure, and perhaps you're talking to a group of like-minded people, or people relatable that the book can relate to. Maybe it's parents, maybe it's professionals, maybe it's travelers. Maybe it's people who had a certain experience or had someone in common. You're going to them perhaps with information or adding a lighter moment to their challenges.
I also like what you said earlier about when you are traveling. Like if I'm flying to LA to speak at a conference, I'll look for other things that I can do while I'm in LA. Like, is there another event going on? Is there an opportunity to get on some radio shows, talk shows? Are there, groups that are meeting that I could go and speak to, women's groups or whatever? So I do try and maximize the trips that I go on to get more visibility.
And that's one of the goals. That's one thing that you want to get visibility for yourself and for your book and for your message.
That's right. Exactly. And you just never know who's going to see it, watch it. You never know who's going to tweet about it or put something up on one of the other social media channels. You just never know. And that's one of the great things, one of the exciting things about nowadays and the way the world is.
And if you see someone who's doing a podcast or writing a column about this area that dovetails with your book, it doesn't hurt to let them know about your book, to send them a copy.
Absolutely. But when you think about podcasts, people that are running podcasts, they usually have a theme. You want to make their job as easy as possible. So you can come up with an idea for one of their shows because they have an objective. They want to deliver great value to their listeners. They want to increase their listeners as well. So if you can help them do that, they're probably more likely to pay attention.
And there may be other groups looking for speakers to talk about their groups, especially if it relates to their areas of concern. It could be a community group, a parent-teachers association, some other group, Chamber of Commerce, some where the people have something in common with you or the protagonist in your book.
Absolutely true.
For this program about conceiving of the book, getting it in motion, taking those steps to get it going, what other suggestions do you have for our listeners, lawyers and others, in getting that book off the ground?
Is to decide, do you want to self-publish or would you like to go the traditional way of publishing? That's something else that you can consider, although you could certainly self-publish your book and then allow a publisher to pick it up if they come after you. That's happened with me. I released one of my books and then a publisher, after the book had been out for a couple of years, came to me and said they wanted to buy the rights to my book, and I sold it to them. And I ended up publishing 4 books with that publishing house.
And it also might lead to a second book. So
Exactly.
So when the typical story of an author getting all those tons of rejection letters, now you have other options. You can do it yourself and get your message out there, and maybe there'll be a publisher for the next one.
It's just such a different world now with the publishing. And, it was a lot more attractive 20 years ago to get a publisher, not so much now, because the publishers still expect the author to market their books. And that's where the money's made. I mean, it really is where the money is earned. So if you're going to be doing the work anyways, self-publish. And you can have your self-published book look like a quality product. It doesn't have to look like something that someone did in their basement. It can still be a very high quality product that has a perceived high value. And people can't tell the difference between whether it's from a publishing house or from someone who did it from their home.
I just want to remind our listeners that we are talking with Peggy McColl. She is the author of your book, Your Business, Your Breakthrough. She's been giving us suggestions for how lawyers and others can publish their own book and, take it from conceiving of it to actually putting it into press and perhaps making a few bucks off of it. If you missed any portion of this program, the podcast is available at nccradio.org. And we're going to continue our conversation with Peggy next week with more details on how to publish and especially how to promote your book and how to put it to work for you. So please join us next week at this same time on 90.3 WHPC, the voice of Nassau Community College in Garden City, New York.